What happens to that game you checked out on Kickstarter? Did it succeed? Meet its funding goals? Is it a totally different game? Or did the project silently fade into obscurity? This is something that I often wonder, especially as a content creator, where I'm well aware that there are some famous Kickstarter games that really didn't pan out, and others that panned out excellently. And so I was pleasantly surprised to see Afterimage featured in Steam Next. This is a game that I had seen their Kickstarter campaign and checked it out. Now, after playing the original demo, I'd been pretty happy with what I saw. Afterimage is a Symphony of the Night style Metroidvania game, with an anime-inspired art style. At the time, the demo available was pretty cool, but combat was definitely a little bit clunky, and jumping was nothing short of janky. Have things improved? Absolutely yes. Now, our nameless protagonist without memories is known as Renee, who suffers a fate well known to many other game protagonists. Her home village has been destroyed by mysterious attackers, and the only way to solve the mystery of who did it is by killing everything in your path. Like with most Metroidvania titles, jumps feel impossible at first, and areas are just flat inaccessible, because what you need is to unlock your other tools like dash and double jump. Even with these tools, some of the jumps still feel like they're on the punishing side, but a lot better than the original. Combat has also been significantly improved. There's still no iframes on the dash, and there's still no vertical attacks without using specials. But overall, targeting enemies is far smoother, and my combat felt a lot more versatile. I was jumping, dashing, and attacking. I didn't really get the hang of it until the very end of the demo, but once I got the hang of it, it honestly felt really good. So in many ways, it's the same game. But in other ways, it's totally different because the entire demo has been revamped. There's more voice acting, an actual story, and several brand new vibrant areas. Unfortunately, some of those areas have flying enemies, which are still a pain, but the ranged enemies are much easier to deal with due to the way the deflection system works. Now I'll be honest, I've fallen in love with the game's aesthetic, and I can't wait to play it when it comes out. In fact, if the developers happen to be watching, I'd love to check the full game out ahead of release and give a review summing up my thoughts. At this point, the gameplay feels like a very nice mix of the Dark Souls-esque Symphony of the Night gameplay, where everything's slow, heavy, and deliberate, combined with a little bit of that fluid speed from Ori and the Blind Forest. Where the game particularly started to shine, especially in regards to combat, was the final boss fight of the demo. It did take me a good few attempts to get her down, but as I learned her patterns and how to time my jumps and dashes, and as an Evernote, the fight itself was a huge upgrade over all the previous boss fights from both this and the first demo. I didn't feel like I was fighting an oversized monster. I felt like I was fighting a boss, a powerful foe that I had to respect. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the game has a completely new revamped story, but unfortunately, it was a little bit hard to follow. This could be because I was just playing the demo, maybe I need an entire anime series to know what's going on, or it could be that things are a little bit too cryptic. Either way, I'm pretty happy to sit back and enjoy the artwork because the aesthetic is just that good. Afterimage's skill system has also been totally revamped, and is now a much more complicated skill web, where you start by moving through basic stat increases, which can be upgraded further when you reach the requisite level, and then eventually you fill out more of a tree until you get to powerful weapon arts. These change how you play and make combat much more interesting. I didn't really make the best choices because I was just playing through a short demo, but if I had been playing the game for real, I definitely would have filled out the sword tree more and tried to get one of those weapon arts. Instead, I tried to rush over to the scythe without realizing that I wouldn't get enough levels to actually try it, which is unfortunate because it looked really cool. Now luckily, unlike a lot of the titles that I've talked about for Steam Next, which are coming soon TM, this one's going to be releasing on April 25th. If you're a fan of Metroidvania titles, then I'd absolutely recommend checking it out for yourself and picking the game up once it releases. Or, if you're still not sure, maybe wishlist it in the meantime. Now, like I mentioned at the start, the gameplay did feel a little bit clunky initially. I'd miss a lot of jumps and try to decide, can I actually make it, only to find out, no I couldn't. But once I unlocked the dash, while the jumps were still quite challenging, it was far more fluid, and oftentimes I'd be able to chain them together nicely. The greater ease of traversal definitely encouraged me to explore more, and it feels like there's a lot more goodies hidden away in nooks and crannies than from my experience with the first demo. Now, I've always had a little bit of a love-hate relationship when it comes to exploring in Metroidvanias. At the start, everything's fresh and new and I just want to 100% the map. But when I'm at 97.5% progress and can't find that one last thing, I absolutely hate that there's a progress bar at all. So explore with caution, keep doing it while it's fun, but don't burn yourself out just to get 100%. And while I was exploring, I noticed that the scenery is absolutely beautiful. It almost reminds me of an old GameCube game called Tenkiei's Eternal Wings and the Lost Ocean. That game also used a lot of hand-drawn, hand-painted backgrounds, and at the time it had some very revolutionary effects that made the game feel much more interactive. You'd walk by some leaves and they'd brush up against your character. Sure, that might seem pretty normal these days, but at the time it was definitely unique. And I love how in a 2D game, Afterimage is replicating a lot of that by having things move in the background, and having the background kind of jump into the foreground and cover your character temporarily as you go through certain passages. Now, I know I've spent quite a bit of time praising the art and the aesthetic. Most of the time in my games, I'm not too picky when it comes to artwork. I'll play pretty much anything. But sometimes, when it's done really well, I definitely take notice. I was drawn in from the beginning of the introduction, even if the story told does leave a few more questions than answered. But don't just take my word for it. Here's the game's intro sequence, and I want you to let me know afterwards what you think.
The residence of God, where peace has returned. The war that was promised, lost to the ages. The children of God, returning to their origins. Indeed, she is gone. Those left behind are withering, day by day, from this deafening silence. The sun and stars have yet to return to their proper paths. The rain no longer graces its children. Souls once flowing in the stream are now lost beyond. Beings have forfeited their gifts bestowed by God, and may be awakened no more.
Only her whispers can coax the souls to return to the world. May our paths cross soon once again.
So what about you? Are you drawn into the world of Afterimage? Are you looking forward to playing the game? Or maybe Metroidvanias aren't your cup of tea? If that's the case, I already have several other games from different genres that I looked at as part of Steam Next previously. And I have 2 upcoming games, Dark and Darker, along with 1 mystery surprise game. So if you're curious about any of those, do be sure to get subscribed and ring that bell to be notified whenever I upload. Maybe while you're done there, leave a like, to tell the algorithm to show this video to more people. But that's Afterimage, a beautiful Metroidvania game that I first encountered as a Kickstarter project that had potential, but I always wondered, what would end up happening to it? And now I can see the results. The developer has done a ton of work, and I'm looking forward to the release on April 25th. Before I go, a special thanks to my patrons and channel members for their continued support. If you're looking for something else to watch, YouTube will have a recommendation on screen right now. Or if you want to see just how far Afterimage has come, I'll have my original video up in the card and down in the description below. Or of course, you could always check out any of my other thoughts on the previous Steam Next games. And now, just for everyone who stayed to the end, I have one last secret question. If this game was made into an anime, would you watch it?